Mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment, and it's paying attention in a particular way because we're paying attention in a friendly way, in a non-judgmental way. We're moving into the body and out of being on autopilot. So most of the time we're caught either in the past or in the future with our thoughts, and we're really missing what's going on in this moment.
A lot of people think, well, I'm paying attention all the time. I'm here in my life. But really, in this moment, a lot of us aren't right here. Where are we? Right? We're either rehearsing the future in planning mind, thinking, what do I have to do next, and next, and next? Or maybe we're rehashing the past, thinking about what happened before, and I should have said this instead of that. So between all the rehearsing and the rehashing, we forget that this moment right here is when we're alive.
Mindfulness is a pause button, so that you can just stop and be there and stop the mind chatter, stop the worry and the anxiety, or at least put it at bay.
So it's this very, it can feel actually pretty paradoxical what we're doing or what we ask people to do. And we have a saying that the fastest way in this practice to get from A to B is actually to be fully at A.
Mindfulness gives me a chance to kind of center myself and just think about one thing at a time and just allow my brain to take a moment to relax.
Mindfulness is not something that is foreign to us, so we all know how to do that, so we all know how to be present. It is just something that we are not trained to be in this place more often. So the training really helps us not to only be mindful for a moment, but to stay in that moment. Or when the mind wanders off, which is what it will do, of course, you just bring it back. And so the process of really learning mindfulness is to bring the mind back, but gently, and not judging yourself that the mind wanders off. This is just a normal thing that it will do. So in meditation or mindfulness practice, we have distinguished between formal and informal practice. So formal practice is when we take the time to just meditate, just to be in the present moment. And we can do that sitting, focusing on our breath. We can do that walking, feeling our feet. We can do that lying down, feeling into our entire body, but we're doing nothing else during that time. And then in informal practice, we are paying attention to what we are already doing, like we're drinking a cup of coffee, or we're petting the dog, or we are driving our car. So that would be informal practice. So we're using all of our senses to bring it to that activity in that moment and noticing what is really here compared to what I think is here.
So sometimes it's helpful to think about what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not a religion. What we're teaching here is a secular practice that can help people from all walks of life. And it's not an experience enhancer either. It's just the ability to be with our present moment experience just as we are with kindness. And through our mindfulness practice, we learn some essential things. We have this constant discrepancy analyzer, the way life should be, minus the way life actually is in our minds, equals how much our life sucks. And we're doing that constantly, constantly, constantly in each moment.
And when we can allow ourselves just to be present with whatever is here in this moment, we'll notice that this moment actually might not be so bad.
Some people come into this practice have this sense that, oh, I should be feeling relaxed, or I should have a particular outcome with this. And that striving in and of itself is a barrier to doing the practice. We're falling a little bit into receptivity.
So it's very curious because we actually don't know what makes us being mindful. So I mean, if something happened, like there's a loud sound or something, then of course you're mindful. But then sometimes you just walk down the street and you notice suddenly your feet, or you notice the sun or the trees or whatever. Why we have that, we don't know. But what we do know is how we can get more of those moments, which is by practicing mindfulness. So that's another really good reason to have a regular mindfulness practice, let's say even like 10 minutes every day, and people really, really feel different throughout their entire day because it's easier for them to remember to be mindful.
Training veterans to pay attention to the present moment with kindness is a fantastic intervention across a number of diagnostic presentations for not just mental health patients, but for patients with a lot of physical suffering, for chronic ailments, and for chronic pain.
So I think using mindfulness at the VA can help in 3 ways. It helps the veterans. They can help themselves with the issues that they have, so they're not relying necessarily so much on a healthcare provider. Then we're helping the healthcare provider, so the clinician, to take better care of themselves because the rates of burnout and compassion fatigues are very high. And we're also helping the interaction of the two being together in the clinical setting, because what happens with compassion fatigue is that we're just not as engaged or attuned to the people that we work with as clinicians. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Veterans returning from conflict, most recently Iraq and Afghanistan, have had lots of physiological arousal, of course PTSD symptoms, hyperactive fight or flight.
Being able to pause or just focus on your breathing can give you enough space to make a different choice.
And of course, this is something that we can see. This is our experience as teachers of mindfulness, and this is something that our students feel immediately. They come into our classes and say, I was triggered by something and I didn't react. And that is huge.
An Iraqi combat vet was in the supermarket, and he had a PTSD diagnosis and had been taking mindfulness and BSR series, and it was busy and 5 p.m. and the carts are coming from unexpected places and he's getting more and more anxious. He's finally in line to check out, 3 people in line, and the woman at the checkout line is only getting 1 item. And of course the story he starts telling himself, she's in the wrong place, why is it taking so long? She has a baby, she's talking to the checker, it goes on, and he's getting more and more anxious, and it's all he can do just to stay there, just to breathe and track his breath. Then she hands the baby over to the checker, and the checker's bouncing the baby. He finally gets up there, and instead of yelling at the checker, he says to her, "Cute baby." She says, "Oh, you think so? Thanks, that's my son. You know, my husband was killed in Iraq last year, and I've had to go back to work to support our family. And, you know, my mom just brings him in here just a couple of times a day, and, you know, she just buys one thing, just so I get to see my son." The ability to observe the sensations in the body and the thoughts going through the mind helps vets to find their way back to being at peace inside their body again. There's an emerging body of evidence that is expanding every day rapidly, and mindfulness modalities for health. In my mind, though, it makes sense to think of them in 3 general areas. The first kind of column of this is mood symptoms like depression and anxiety. The research is indicating that the effect size for mindfulness for symptom reduction is in the average medium to large range. This is fantastic news.
I don't look sad. I used to have some issues regarding depression, anxiety, and I feel that I have a smile more than I used to.
The second kind of column for me of research is the physiological or sort of the biological measures. So looking at mindfulness and seeing what's happening in the body, not just in things like cortisol and stress hormone reduction. But now we're getting into new realms showing very exciting works in epigenetics. In just 6 to 8 weeks, as many as 60 genes that regulate inflammatory processes in the body were being turned on or off in the appropriate direction. So when people have aches and pains and tiredness and fatigue, that we're teaching a behavioral approach that can have epigenetic implications in how their genome is being expressed, and this has profound implications in their own health care. Also in column 2, some of the evidence that connects mindfulness to biomarker changes in the body. It has to do with mindfulness impacting cellular aging. And how they're looking at this is through the examination of telomeres.
So at the end of each chromosome, there are telomeres. You can imagine it like the little caps at the end of the shoelaces, and they get shorter over time, but they get also shorter with stress.
And there's evidence that's preliminary, but still very fascinating, to suggest that a mindfulness practice can help change the path of cellular aging. The third kind of research domain is this idea of neuroplasticity, that as the brain fires, it wires. We're teaching practices, not just for attention, but for compassion and kindness, that can help rewire the brain in as little as 8 weeks. We can see through brain imaging differences in people's subcortical structures and how the neural pathways connect. This has long-term implications for things like mood regulation. Also, veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with traumatic brain injury and intractable post-traumatic headache. We're exploring to see if meditation can not only provide them some felt relief with their chronic pain, with their headache, but doing some pre and post brain images to see if we're able to alter this intractable post-traumatic headache with a meditation intervention. We're at an interesting time in healthcare delivery, I think in the country, but certainly at the VA. In a very important way, we're shifting the locus of control from the healthcare provider in a white coat into the veteran. We are teaching veterans to handle the day-to-day issues that come up in their lives. They're taking these tools and using it every day in their lives.
Grounding is this idea that we're just coming back into our body. So often we're just in our head. When we're in autopilot, we're not really in our body, but we are either lost in the past or we are thinking about the future. So grounding is any activity that brings us back into the body in this moment. Good way to do that is to just by starting to feel your feet. So you can feel the contact that your feet are having with the floor. You can do that when you're sitting, you can do that when you're walking. Very simple. You can also look. You can just orient yourself really in the room instead of being lost in thought, really saying like, what am I seeing right now? You can focus on sound. You can use all of your senses. If you want to do a little bit more of a formal grounding practice, you would feel your feet on the floor, and then you would feel where else your body has contact with the chair that you're sitting on. So the legs, the back, and then you can focus on some breath and maybe also what your hands are doing in that moment. And you can do that without anybody noticing. So it's very simple, it's very effective, and you're right here.
Another tool that we can teach to veterans and we can use ourselves is stop. The S means stop, T, take a breath, O means observe your experience, checking in with your sensations in the body, your thoughts, and your emotions, and the P, proceed in a way that feels right to you. You might use stop in a situation that is difficult and challenging, or where you notice really strong thoughts or emotions coming in. And it's just a way to check in with yourself and give yourself a little bit of space to proceed in a way that feels right.
So another thing you can do at any moment during the day when you feel tense or you feel you need a little bit more support, and you would choose a word or a sentence that has a meaning for you that helps you feel supported or helps you feel being more compassionate, mostly to yourself. So it can be something like, may I be safe, or this too shall pass, or it will be okay. It is like having your best friend with you, saying that to you, so to get you through a hard moment.
Every doorway is a moment for a clinician to pause, become present fully in this situation, and then proceed. So for a clinician that is in a busy clinic where you're going from room to room to room, seeing lots of patients, this is an opportunity just to bring all of yourself into the room and fully attend to the patient.
So as you can see, mindfulness is not complicated, and you can do that whenever you remember doing something. So while on the one hand we're emphasizing that you really take the time for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day where you focus, for example, on the breath. These are tools that you can do throughout your day that won't take any more time, but will make a really huge difference in how you feel.
Part of what's so essential here is understanding that this isn't just about teaching this to others if you're a clinician. It's important that we do this practice ourselves. This is how we become teachers, is that we have our own personal practice.
Like with every new behavior change, repetition is really helpful. And in the beginning, it might feel that when you start mindfulness practice, it's like just another chore that you have to fit into your already very full day. We often compare it with exercise. So, you know, exercise is good for you, and you know you have to do it in order to really reap the benefits of exercise. And you know that it doesn't always feel good. So sometimes you don't want to do it. Sometimes while you do it, you ask yourself, why are you spending all this time on this? But you keep doing it because you know it really helps you. With mindfulness practice, it's very similar. So we do it, and we often say you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. And that again goes away from this idea that whenever you meditate, you feel relaxed and it's wonderful, or you're in a blissful state. You're not. Very often it's tedious and your mind is all over the place, or you might feel actually quite stressed in that moment, and that is fine. It will still change the way you feel in life in general, and it will still change how you respond in situations.
There's a lot of judgments that happen here. So bring a sense of compassionate curiosity to this experience. What's going to come up? What's going to be revealed in this moment here?
What is really helpful to support your mindfulness practice is to find a time during the day that works for you. For a lot of people, it helps to do it at the beginning of the day. Some people do it, they drive to work and then just sit in the car before they walk in. To do it for 5 or 10 minutes can be helpful. It can be during lunch break, it can be at the end of the day if you're not too tired. So in the beginning, it might need some experimentation to find out what really works for you. And then just keep on doing that and make it something that you do every day. So if you combine it with something that you already do, it can be helpful. It can also be very helpful to actually do it in the same place every day, because we have something that we call muscle memory or body memory, so your body will remember. So you get into your chair at the same time of the day and your body will say like, ooh, we're meditating now, and that will be helpful.
So part of what we're doing with this practice, the same posture, the same time, the same place, it doesn't always have to be that way, but we're doing something called stimulus control. So we're linking a posture to a practice over and over time, just like the dog salivating with the bell, can sometimes feel a great sense of relief from the disengagement from the ruminative mind.
So nowadays we're very lucky because there are a lot of resources out there where you can learn mindfulness. The best thing we think is to find a group with a teacher, if that is in your area, because we find that people really learn the best in a group. We're learning from each other. But if you don't have that, there are also a lot of online resources now. You can even do online classes, sometimes even now with video, like with Google Hangout or Skype. You can learn from books. There are a lot of free resources also on audio where you can download guided meditations. It's really wonderful now. And we also have provided you a list of resources that you can check out.
We can aim our attention well. It's hard to sustain it, but we work on this with our practice, moment by moment. We are so fortunate to have a great mission here at the VA, working with folks that believe in providing the service to the veterans who've defended our country. This is a fantastic mission. We do this with compassion and passion for our work. This means a lot to us, and this is rewarding.
So loving kindness practice is old meditation practice, just like focusing on the breath. So it has been around for thousands of years as well. And what we do here is we are using phrases. And we're using phrases and then we go through different categories. So usually we would start with ourselves, sending friendly wishes to ourselves, and then to a friend, or we could switch those. So to a friend or a loved one first and then to ourselves. And then there are more categories. All the phrases start with may you or may you be happy, may I be happy. So it's very important not to get mixed up here with positive affirmations. Like a positive affirmation would start with like, I am happy, or you are happy. And if this is not the case, it can sometimes be very hard. So what we do is we wish this. So it's a heartfelt wish for ourselves or the people around us. Because as you might hear us talk about this, it might feel like, oh God, this is so fake and this is so not working for me. And what's really important is the intention makes it work. So you just repeat those phrases, and with that you will change your neurocircuitry just by the repetition, so it becomes more normal that you hear those words. And so in a situation where you would usually judge yourself or somebody else, it makes it more likely that those words will come up.
Working in my substance abuse and homeless populations, I frequently hear laughters like, what, you want to turn us into punks with this, you want us to be nice, or you want us to be marks. And this is quite different, right? So the idea isn't that you're a pushover or that you're a mark. The idea is how you hold yourself with kindness. We all know, right, the world is hard enough, right? Life can be difficult enough. Do we need to beat ourselves up in our own internal experience? The last category of loving kindness phrases is sending it out to all beings. And I change this a little bit to say, and to all the men and women who are in active duty in Iraq and Afghanistan, right here, today, may you all be safe. May you all come home. And may you all know peace. This they feel. And from this moment, the beginnings, the kindling of compassion and care for another, you can come back to have them start to care for themselves again. The metaphor that I think vets understand well is, if you want big guns, what do? You start with the little weights and you keep working. And what happens with the work of the weightlifting? The muscles respond and grow. If you want the ability, the capacity to have more feel-good and have more experiences of joy and connectedness and pleasure in your life, a loving kindness practice is a great way to start.